Okay. Grant?
Yes.
Since Robin isn't here, this is Carolyn. Since Robin isn't here, would you be willing to open the meeting?
I've
Sure.
been just waiting to be let in.
Robin's waiting to be let in.
I don't see her on my board.
Should I go ahead and open up?
Yes, please, so that we can start.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Grant Chun. I'm actually the Advisory Council liaison to the Maui Advisory Council for the Reapportionment Commission and a member of the Reapportionment Commission. Ms. Kennedy is not here, so I'm going to go ahead on her behalf and convene the meeting. The first order of this, so I'd like to call the meeting to order at 1:03 p.m. and have a determination of a quorum. So I'm going to ask for those folks on the advisory council to indicate their presence. Is Mr. Mike Rumpel present?
Yeah, present.
Welcome, Mike. Is Ms. Lynn Finnegan here?
Present.
Jen Wilbur?
Present.
Thank you, Jen. And Alan Takimoto.
Alan is excused today.
Okay, so the record will reflect that 3 of our 4 advisory council members from Oahu are present. And that being stated, there is a quorum present to conduct business. Hello, Robin. So I have, on your behalf, just called the meeting to order.
Thank you.
Taken the roll call, and I will turn it over to you. We are on item number 3, election of the advisory council chair. So as liaison, if you could lead the folks through that process, and once they've elected a chair, you can turn the gavel over to the chair.
Sure. Okay, so I believe that Mike, Jen, and Lynn are here. So Mike, you had nominated, was it Lynn? I believe you had emailed and talked to me about that.
Yes, if she's good with that, of course.
Yeah, she's not, she wants you. So she's nominated you. So I'm gonna let you guys duke it out, so you guys have at it.
That means it's Jen. I don't mind. I would just as
communicate
long
what your
as
thoughts are.
we, yeah, whatever's quickest. I appreciate that, Lynn. If Jen is fine with that, I could go ahead with it. I don't mind. I just wanted to make sure that the public has proper representation, and she's much better at politics than I am.
Can we once again go over the duties of the chair or whoever's going to chair?
Yeah. Is there anyone from the commission, the actual reapportionment commission here? Like
Yeah,
Lori,
Kevin and
maybe
Grant
Lori
are both
could
on.
chair. It's basically accumulating all of the notes and communicating to the actual commission the thoughts and wishes of the community. So you guys are to take all of the information and testimony and communication from the community and formulate, accumulate a summary and present it to the commission. And Lori or David, if any of you guys have some more support, or Grant, if you have anything, I mean, there's a long list that has been emailed to you guys as a commission, but as the lead, you're basically leading the meetings and you're making sure that we get all the information that we need at the commission level.
I think that's a good summary. Thank you, Commissioner Kennedy.
So there's a motion on the floor for Mike Rumpel to become the chair of your organization. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is passed. Mike, it's all yours.
All right, by default.
Yeah, but you've done an amazing job. Let me just share. You had dove in and you have done an amazing job. So I'm anxious for everyone to share all of that hard work. So Great.
Right. All right. You know, our job is just to represent the public and the people, and that's what we're going to try to do. Next on the agenda is the public testimony. We have received tons of public testimony, and in the essence of time, if you are going to repeat what you've already put in your written testimony, I would appreciate you hold that off until maybe discussion. So the main part, I think, of our meeting, which you haven't been able to do or share, is actual dialogue between the commission and yourselves. And so maybe if we have plenty of time for that, that will help the process. Hopefully all the other advisory council members have had time to read all the written testimony and watch the videos that have already taken place on the commission meetings and see that testimony. You're more than welcome to share whatever you like. Right now, the testimony will be kept to 3 minutes. However, now you will have a discussion time in which you can continue. If all of your thoughts on the process cannot be summed up in 3 minutes, we'll have time for discussion. But I think we're going to move on to public testimony now. Who's managing that?
That would be you. You should have a list, yeah.
Yeah. So some of them that have asked to
If
testify.
I could, this is Kevin Rathbun from Technical Committee. It'd be easier for you to just ask the people to raise their hands that want to speak. That way you won't have to try to figure out who wants to.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a list, Kevin. He's got a list. You should start with the,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Typically,
I like
Scott
the hand
puts it in-
raising. I will go off this list, but if you don't mind raising your hand too, it will be easier. I see that Roberta Mayor is on. She has raised her hand and she's also first on the list. So we
Great.
can have her start. Let me find her on this again.
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good to go.
Great. My name is Roberta Mayer, and I'm the president of the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board, which strongly opposes the proposed reapportioning maps for House Districts 17 and 51 and Senate Districts 9 and 25. The resolution of the neighborhood board that was unanimously passed has been submitted as written testimony. But I wanted to summarize some of the major reasons why we don't support the technical group's plan. The proposed maps fragment the Hawaii Kai community and diminishes the community's voice. The proposed maps create a non-contiguous district that straddles congressional districts 1 and 2, resulting in an incongruent contortion wrapping around the Kaiwi coastline. The proposed maps ignore the historic geographic boundary of Makapu'u Point that naturally divides the windward and leeward sides of the Ko'olaus. The proposed maps ignore the Hawaii Kai community's longtime commitment to preserve and protect the Kaiwi coastline for residents and visitors alike, successfully obtaining designation of the Kaiwi Coast as a state scenic byway, and developing a Mauna Lua to Makapu'u corridor management plan approved by the State Department of Transportation. The proposed maps seek to move many neighborhoods out of Hawaii Kai community who share a common socioeconomic political infrastructure with Hawaii Kai and East Honolulu neighborhoods. Nonsensically, it moves Kaiser High School and its neighborhood into the Windward House District 17 and Senate District 25 outside of the Hawaii Kai community. It is also time, we believe, to reestablish Makapu'u Point as the boundary for the Senate District that puts Kaiser High School into that Senate District. The proposed maps motivated the neighborhood board chairs of Hawaii Kai, Waimanalo, and Kailua to work together to oppose the commission's proposed maps and to unanimously support the alternate maps submitted by Bill Hicks for both the Oahu House districts and the Senate districts. Numerous neighborhood boards across Oahu, representing hundreds of thousands of residents, have joined us in indicating their opposition to the proposed maps developed by the technical group. Multiple alternative maps have been submitted for the technical group to consider, and all of them used both Makapu'u Point and Kaena Point as fixed natural boundaries. So the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board requests that the Oahu Advisory Council support our efforts in urging the Reapportionment Commission to acknowledge the many voices of the community and redraw the maps for House Districts 17 and 51 and for Senate Districts 9 and 25, and maintain the historic natural boundary of Makapu'u Point between these House and Senate districts, and allow Hawaii Kai and other East Honolulu communities to remain intact. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on this very important issue. Aloha.
Aloha, Roberta. Thank you. Jen or Lynn, do you have any direct questions for Roberta at this time? Awesome. Thanks so much. All right, Kimiona, you're there. I see you there. Let me.
Aloha, Chair. Just
Aloha.
want to make sure you can hear me.
Perfect.
All right. Mahalo nui a kako no ke hui ana I ke kakahiaka. Mahalo, Chair. Mahalo to the members of this council and mahalo to the general public and those that are participating. My name is Kimiona Kane. I am a proud child of Waimanalo. I'm also the neighborhood board chair for the Waimanalo Neighborhood Board. I'm here today to stand on both our written testimony submitted on behalf of the Waimanalo community as the neighborhood board's resolution, in addition to my own personal testimony. And I wanted to take a few minutes, Chair, if I could, to acknowledge some of the concerns that have still yet to be answered as far as what the community is worried about in terms of redistricting. Several of the concerns highlighted, as Chair Mayor had already previously shared, is the potential risk to the fabric of Waimanalo as a rural community. Similar to the Hawaii Kai community, we have our own individual concerns that have yet to be discovered as far as answers. And one of the biggest things is that our rural status in this current time is potentially threatened. As a predominantly Native Hawaiian community, there are concerns about our Native Hawaiian statuses as well, and those things that impact our agriculture and farming aspects of our very rural community. We support the Bill Hicks plan as well in terms of its use of Makapu'u Point and keeping that as a natural boundary. I also just wanted to share from a personal perspective, I do want to mahalo this council for finally becoming a space that this community, as well as others, can utilize as a true space for our voices to be heard. I understand there are some challenges getting everyone together. So I want to mahalo the three of the representatives that are here today for making this an opportunity for us to really be heard. And while it is a short turnaround time before the next commission meeting, I do want to acknowledge the commissioners that have been putting in extra effort to try and hearing the different community voices that have gone on around the different islands. And so with that being said, Chair, my testimony today is again to just stand on behalf of our Waimanalo community, the challenges that we're facing, both socioeconomically, as well as just the general fabric of our community, which we feel will be in danger should this current technical group's plan be continued and be looked at. What we're dealing with is the next 10 years of our lives. And that's something that we're not willing to allow our keiki to inherit. And so we're here to stand for them. We're here to stand for our futures. We want to mahalo everybody for the opportunity to be present. Mahalo, Chair, and I'm here for any questions if there are any.
Mahalo, Kimiona. We expect to have more dialogue in the dialogue section, but do appreciate that. And just let me take that opportunity to apologize for my attendance, but Jen Wilbur gets the gold star for perfect attendance, and we'll just do better going forward. Sandy, you're up next. If you're prepared, we're ready to hear your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Advisory Council. My name is Sandy Ma, and I'm with Common Cause Hawaii. As this council reviews the materials submitted and thinks about its advice and comments to the State Reapportionment Commission, Common Cause just recommends that it respects and supports the testimonies provided to this advisory council. Common Cause is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, grassroots organization formed to support the core values of this representative democracy and wants to ensure that our reapportionment process is fair and represents the voices of our community. So thank you for letting me testify before you. You have our written testimony as well, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you again.
Mahalo, Sandy. Any questions for Sandy at this time? Okay, we'll move on to Lisa Bishop. I didn't see her. Oh, there she is. She just moved. Where did it go? There you are, Lisa.
Yeah,
Aloha.
aloha. Good afternoon. Aloha Oahu Advisory Council. I am Lisa Bishop, a resident of Port Lock in Hawaii Kai. I have submitted testimony in strong opposition to the Reapportionment Commission's proposed Oahu House and Senate plans on behalf of Friends of Hanauma Bay because they pose a senseless and needless risk to the stewardship of Hanauma Bay and the whole Ka'ivi Coast. I've also provided strong testimony in opposition to the Commission's proposed plans as a private citizen. As you will see that the vast majority of resident testimony and that of 10 neighborhood boards representing over 300,000 people has been in strong opposition to the Commission's proposed plans. And instead, there has been strong support for the Hicks plans. We hope this testimonial record before this meeting and that today will empower the Oahu Advisory Council to support the wishes of the overwhelming number of residents who have stepped up to voice their concerns and recommend to the Reapportionment Commission that the proposed plans be redrawn along the lines of the Hicks plans, which much better align with the requirements of the state constitution and with the values of Oahu's communities. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Mahalo, Lisa. We have any questions for Lisa at this moment, or we can pick it up in dialogue? Y'all good over there? Everything good, Lynn? Okay, we're all set to move forward. Looks like we have Bill Hicks up next. Thank you, Lisa. Mahalo. Aloha, Bill.
Aloha, Chair. I'm Bill Hicks, Chairman of the Kailua Neighborhood Board. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify today. I apologize for the small book's worth of written testimony I submitted, but I think I had to do that to put it in the record. I'll summarize in 3 minutes. Commissioners encouraged residents to use the interactive maps to make and submit plans for your consideration, so I did that. It was eye-opening. Wrapping the Kailua Waimanalo House District 51 around Makapu'u Point all the way to Port Lock is what Bart Dame calls the original sin. It is not necessary. It is not logical. There are much better alternatives. It mixes Windward Oahu with East Oahu in a single district. Contrary to guidance contained in the Hawaii Constitution, it is not compact and for practical purposes, not contiguous. It also causes huge disruption in East Oahu, splitting Hawaii Kai, splitting Manoa Valley, and vaporizing House District 19 near Diamond Head, scattering that district into 4 different districts. I moved to Kailua in 1986 and can only remember being in Port Lock once, about 20 years ago. The Commission's plans have 8.54% total population deviation in the House and 7.93% in the Senate. My plans have 2.58% in the House and 2.02% in the Senate, with 25 House districts and 16 of 17 Senate districts individually less than 1%. The target for federal districts is 1%. How is it that 8.54% is the best we can come up with? We shouldn't settle for that. Districts should be as nearly equal in population as practicable so that one person's vote in a legislative election is worth as much as another's. There are 5 citizen-submitted House plans and 3 citizen-submitted Senate plans. All 8 plans use Makapu'u Point as a natural boundary between Windward and East Oahu House and Senate districts. All 8 plans have a lower total population deviation than the Commission's plan. Any plan can be improved upon. My original plan had a flaw in Kalihi Valley, which has been corrected. I found that Mililani Town has the right size population to be its own House district and demonstrated how that could be done in the Mililani excursion. My plan is only offered as a starting point for further improvement. 11 neighborhood boards representing about 300,000 Oahu residents have passed resolutions opposed to the commission's plan. I offer as a suggestion for 2031 that the commission and/or the Oahu Advisory Council should consider proactively working with all of the neighborhood boards as part of the process. Because the commission's plan wasn't approved for public comment until October 28th and many boards recess in December, many found there was insufficient time to review and post this to their November agendas. There needs to be more transparency. Next Wednesday, just 5 days from now, the commission will unveil its final plan, potentially game over. We don't have a clue as to whether the public input has made an impact or not. We don't even know if the foundational population numbers, step 1, are correct or not. What a breath of fresh air it was to read Chair Mike Rumpel's board packet included in today's testimony. Mahalo nui loa, Chair, for your transparency and wisdom. I urge the Oahu Advisory Council to strongly advocate for Oahu residents and at a minimum push for using Makapu'u Point as a boundary for House and Senate districts and to use a plan with much lower total population deviation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Bill. I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss in dialogue with everyone. And Jen or Lynn, do you have any questions for Bill at this moment? Mahalo. We have a series of written testimonies that are all available. There was a couple of written testimonies that came in late, but should be available under meeting materials. So unless Vanessa DeStaggio, Jerry Lamb, Charles Sexton, Helen Nakano, Gordon Aoyagi, or Ryan Tam would like to have oral testimony, which I don't see them present, we'll move on to the next oral testifier, which it seems to be Bart Dame at this time.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna do some scratch and paste or cut and paste technology here. So you're watching a video at this moment. Hopefully it's under 3 minutes.
My name is Bart Dame. I live in East Honolulu.
Can you hear that?
Yeah,
can
Bart, we can't see it.
there in the picture. It's DE Dame.
You can't see it?
No.
No, we cannot. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Now we see you.
Facebook, which is open to the public. We have data there that is not publicly available.
Could you flip it again?
Excuse me?
We're seeing you instead of the video.
On the red.
Darn it.
Yeah, you have to get someone to, you have to have the host share your
Is that going? Do you see it now? I see it in
Yes.
my window.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Technical problems. You guys mentioned them in your opening.
You got 30 minutes to correct it. You're all good.
Okay.
On their dependents. So I'd like to start off by talking about the criteria that are supposed to be guiding reapportionment. This is from a slideshow that was presented by Joyce Jones. I think we can evaluate the plans based on how closely they follow the criteria. These criteria must be followed as closely as practicable. Here is the definition of practicable from 2 different sources online. One is Black's Law Dictionary, which is sort of the definitive legal dictionary. It says practicable is an idea or project which can be brought to fruition or reality without any unreasonable demands. Criteria must be followed as closely as practicable, which means because there's a trade-off between competing imperatives, it means that sometimes you have to trade off one for the other, but the commission is not free to just do whatever it wants. It must justify the relaxation of one criterion by showing how this is forced on them by other criteria. So here's the proposed map by the commission. I think this is the map that they are trying to railroad through. If you look at these districts, they are not compact by any definition. Look at what's happening here with House District 18. Look at what's happening here with House District 21, going all the way from Macaulay to Diamond Head. Look what's happened to 20 and how it's forced to go down Kapapulu and Lower Kaimaki. Now compare that with the map that Bill Hicks has introduced. These are compact, reasonable districts that preserve community. So maybe you think that the commission was forced by population pressures. The numbers, they have great deviations.
Go ahead, Bart.
If you want more information, please go to my site. You will see the information's there. Also like to point out that 51 is almost identical to the historical caricature of what a bad district looks like. This is the gerrymander map from Massachusetts in the early part of the 19th century. It is almost identical to what they're trying to do with House District 51. So please, if you have any questions here, ask them of me. Otherwise, go to my Hawaii Reapportion Facebook group and we can discuss it there. Thank you much. I'm available for questions. And my name is Bart Dane.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I think my technical problems are done because I'm done.
All right.
And I'm
Mahalo,
available for
Bart.
discussion.
Mahalo. Any questions right now for Bart? We can pick it up in the discussion phase. Okay, it looks like Becky Gardner has her hand up for oral testimony.
Aloha, everybody. Thank you, Chair Rompel, members of the Advisory Council. My name is Becky Gardner. I am owner and principal of Policy Matters LLC. I'm here today pretty much on my own capacity and as a Kaimuki resident, and also just because I have some history in the reapportionment process. I was a staff attorney for a Big Island legislator when the reapportionment occurred in 2011. And at that time, I had a number of neighbor island legislators asking me to do some research about how things were being conducted by that 2011 commission. So I went into the archives, looked into the constitutional legislative history, and I was able to determine, pretty plainly and clearly that the commission at that time was engaged in an unconstitutional extraction process. Over the years, and I don't mean to make any comment on whether we should or shouldn't include the military. I think there are valid arguments on both sides, but my fidelity is to the process and to the Constitution. And I think it's really important that we get this right, because we'll be setting some precedent for future reapportionments that are based on an invalid, improper process. And so after our experience in 2011, as I was saying, I could see what was happening was illegal, and some other attorneys out there did so as well, and they sued. And the Supreme Court at that time and bank invalidated the plan. And, they basically said, go back to the drawing board, you didn't do the right extraction. So I'm happy to discuss this later when we have a dialogue, but I do want to just sort of make some comments as a Oahu resident, as a Kaimuki resident. I'm a member of the Kaimuki Neighborhood Board, and I made this little map for myself, and you saw it before with Bart's, but the yellow that I highlighted is the Kaimuki Neighborhood Board area. And so, we have a territory that's like less than half of what a House district is, but yet we have 3 House reps coming into this area. You can't see Manoa, but I seen how Manoa has been cleaved. I think that's problematic. I know what a cohesive community that is. Here, you can see Diamond Head down here, and then sort of going up into this area. These communities are completely different, and they're connected by a completely uninhabited golf course, which is very strange to me. And then, of course, the most egregious is where the incumbent is. I'm oriented weird, but the incumbent here is in this like funny corner. Oh, of course, I'm getting called. That wraps around an incumbent's residence. So this looks like a jigsaw, and I'm very concerned that if this plan gets set into stone, it's going to be the baseline of whatever happens in 2031 and so on and so on. And this is not what our district, can you imagine representing one of these districts that looks like this serpent? Like, put it on a t-shirt. It's ridiculous. And I'm very concerned about submergence, as it's referred to in the Constitution. We have the submergence of the Native Hawaiian population in Waimanalo. They're squished and sent into Portlock and over Enchanted Lake area. So that's disturbing to me. Public housing, Kamehameha public housing is submerged as well, between 3 House districts is my understanding. So there's a way, the Hicks plans have shown that this is avoidable. And this can be done with even less deviation. They went from like 8% deviation with the commission's plans to 2% deviation. This is with the Hicks plan and all these derivations of the Hicks plans. So a lot of people started what he did and like, well, I'm not sure I like what they did in he did in my neighborhood, so I'm going to tweak a little bit. So we, the public, can do this. In fact, my understanding is that Bill Hicks did this like because he was into it and did it in one night. So I know it's possible. And I don't want my children to adopt this jigsaw puzzle and then have to deal with these weird things about their schools being in a different district where they live, you know, because it's on the other side of a mountain range, or, you know, it's really, it's doable. And it's doable within a day, and it's doable by someone who's uninitiated in this software. The other thing, I just really sort of, well, I'm also happy that you're letting me talk and you're willing to ask questions. I haven't felt as welcome to offer my views by the commission. I feel like a lot of my questions were sort of rebuffed. So I'm happy, Chair, that you are engaging the public in this way. And then, you know, finally, I'm just upset about the extent of waste that has gone into, you know, by the public and by those who are getting paid to be chasing this map that people want, which is completely unconstitutional. The extraction process and the, you know, it's not compact, it's not contiguous, it's drawn in such a way to favor certain factions and political actors. We need to get this right. This is a basic of our democracy. And, you know, I just hate that there's so much wasted effort just to get to the basics. So with that, I'll conclude, and I'm available for questions afterwards.
Mahalo, Becky. Effort without results will be wasted, but I feel like we can get some results here. Any questions, Lynn or Jen, for Becky at this time? Okay, we have Vanessa, I don't have her last name, has raised her hand to testify orally. Aloha, Vanessa.
Aloha, my name is Vanessa Destajo. I'm a board member of Malama Manoa and also the vice president of Manoa Outer Circle. Both of those nonprofit boards did send in testimony to the Reapportionment Commission. So I'd like the advisory council to acknowledge that as well. And then I don't see our neighborhood board chair in the queue, but Dylan Armstrong, the Manoa neighborhood board chair, also sent in our neighborhood board's resolution about reapportionment. The people of Manoa do support Bill Hicks's plan. We worked with him on how to figure out the best path forward. Before you send in your recommendations to the Reapportionment Commission Technical Group, I would encourage you again to review Article 4 of our state constitution. And as an educator, I would like to ask an esoteric question and have you consider, what should I teach my students about democracy if the will of the people is not heard? We've had overwhelming testimony from all parts of the island that this plan does not work for the people. Please, I implore you to read all the testimony carefully. You know, we've covered all bases for ethos, pathos, logos of the arguments involved. We've had legal people, doctors, you know, educators, people from all walks of life come out and give of their time. I'm actually in between students right now myself, but I encourage you to just feel the will of the people on this issue. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Chair.
Hello, Vanessa. Any questions for Vanessa at this time? Okay, we have Natalia Hussey-Burdick has her hand up to testify next.
Aloha, commissioners and advisory committee members. I appreciate you for scheduling this meeting today and for hearing all of our voices. I am a lifelong Windward Oahu resident, and I speak today on my own behalf. I just kind of want to echo the sentiments that I've heard over and over again, not only in today's testimony, but also in previous Reapportionment Commission's testimony, that first of all, I feel that we're a little bit putting the cart in front of the horse by discussing these maps and their validities and where the lines should be, when it's clear that the extraction has not been done properly. Article 4 of the Constitution, Section 4, requires that these lines be based on permanent residents only. So with an extraction, a suspiciously undercounted extraction, and kind of vague lines about how these numbers were gotten and I believe it was about 30,000 below the number that got overturned 10 years ago. I think it's to move forward based on this count with this extraction, it's almost guaranteeing that the results of this reapportionment maps are going to be challenged in court and most likely overturned. And then you have to go back to the drawing board and start all over with a whole new extraction process and then redrawing those maps. So I just want to say I really appreciate Commissioner Kennedy for doing her due diligence to look into those numbers and to make sure that she actually is getting the proper extraction numbers. And I would like to see more of that moving forward rather than just like what I see at the commission hearing so far is I know that there's a question about the numbers, but we're just kind of going to brush that under the rug and move forward with these lines, which I think is premature. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your time. Aloha.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. Mahalo. We appreciate your input on that. And there was one written testimony sent in late from Dylan Armstrong that we have on the record as well. Please take a look at all the written testimony that's online. And we have spent time doing that. And I think if there's no, I'll give a few moments if anyone wanted to add any oral testimony. If not, then we'll be able to move on to some review and discussion. I've prepared some things for that so that we can expedite our time and make sure that we still give a voice for each one of you to participate in that. I know that the commission process doesn't allow for that, but the Oahu Advisory Council does allow for that. And that'll get us to, I think, a better place. Does anyone, Vanessa, you have your hand up again. Do you want to add anything to your testimony? Grant, if you're speaking to us, you're on mute. Okay, I assume he's not speaking to us. Okay, in the on the Office of Elections website, we've been able to add some meeting materials there, and I put together a board packet. That board packet is kind of taking into account everything that I've heard, and now I'd like to share with the other advisory council members so that we can come up with a plan that best represents the people and everything that has been inputted. Of course, as you've seen, there's a lot of that. If you're following along the board packet on the second page, we kind of talk about what Natalia just stated about, okay, what's the public testimony concerning step one before we even go on to step two? Then the public testimony concerning step two, and then something we haven't heard at any of the commission meetings is about the senatorial staggering. And we just need to, that has to be spoken about. Of course, it's last and we have other hills to climb right now, but it is a part of the process that we haven't heard anything about similar to that of step one. You know, I think we all got to this process at some point. I'd like to acknowledge that probably no one has put in as much work as Bill Hicks has on this, but I spent a lot of time trying to catch up to where he was and where a lot of your testimony was and where we're at. I'm sure the other advisory council members have read all that written testimony. If not, we still have a little bit of time to do that. We're going to continue to do that before we present a reasonable packet to the commission. I hope if you have any input on the board packet that you would give that to us in the next day or so that we can prepare a complete packet to send on to the commissioners so that they have all of your testimony in a way in which you want to be represented. You know, our neighborhoods, Ahapua, predate the inclusion into the United States and therefore predate our Hawaii Constitution. Obviously, they don't invalidate the Constitution. We operate based on the Hawaii Constitution, nor did the Hawaii Constitution invalidate the Ahapua. In several neighborhoods, they still use those names and geographical areas to represent the community in which the community was built upon. The Ahapua were intentionally divided, ensuring ulukau. It's commonly referred to as Maukata Makai. That's to ensure each had the full range of natural resources in order to be self-sufficient while still contributing to the greater good of the Mokupuni, or what we are calling for apportionment, basic island unit. Under this system 100 years ago, each of those communities was self-sufficient, which in turn meant each island was independently self-sufficient. And that met the needs of the community, and above the needs of the community, from watershed to marine resources to being able to cultivate the land. It was also, they were also able to contribute up to the rest of the island's needs. And, you know, we have 100 years of advancement, and where are we in relation to that? It might not sound like something that matters in this issue if we just extract the commission and we just extract the reapportionment process. But really what we're trying to do is to have a community that is both sustainable for our generation and we pass it on to future generations. And if we don't take that into account in this process, how can we actually ever get back to that point? Everyone says that sustainability in Hawaii is the top priority. And then we break it up with all these processes. So, you know, that's just basically how I started this. And then what are the things that we're working on in the process? If you skip through, get through the Constitution, get through the Hawaii State, the charter on that, and we get to, you know, what is the duty of the Reapportionment Commission. That first step is to confirm the census numbers, less the extractions. There has been requests for that. I know that Bart Dame, Becky Gardner, and Sandy Ma have had more input on that. If you'd like to share anything at this moment, it's good to. I did include that in my assessment in the board deck, some of what you've brought forward, and just my own interpretation of that. Really, it interpretates itself. I don't need to interpretate that. I think we start interpreting sections of that when we try to move away from that. But Becky or Bart or Sandy, if you have anything specifically you'd like to share in that area on the first process, we'd be open to hear that and discuss that now. Go ahead, Bart, we see you.
Okay. My concern has to do with both process and the content of the policy. When they first advanced the proposed extraction numbers, it was at a meeting in July 20th. It was late in the meeting. Public members were not allowed to testify after the presentation and had to wait 5 weeks before we could respond. The numbers that were produced called for an extraction of something like 64,000 non-resident military. And it was obvious to me and to a number of other people, including, I think, David Rosenbrock and probably Royce. I see Royce is there, as well as the two experienced commissioners, Dylan Nonaka and Cal Chipchase, because we went through this 10 years ago, and there was very in-depth discussion 10 years ago about how we determine the residency of dependents and of military members, et cetera. So when these numbers came up and they were about 2/3 of what they had been 10 years earlier, I had immediate questions, and I think any thinking person would have had questions, but not one commissioner asked those questions at those meetings. Not one staff member called it to the attention of commissioners that these numbers were problematic. It took more than a month before Dave Rosenbrock admitted that when he looked at the numbers at first, he thought they were off. And so he went back a couple times to the military. But there was this delay, and there has been a refusal of the commission, and I think it comes from the chair. Chairman Muguishi has decided this topic is not ripe for public discussion. And so he has suppressed discussion of it. If you go back to July 20th till now, you're talking about almost 6 months there, 5 months or so. This question has been postponed and delayed. And so now they're saying that they're going to have a response back from the military on the day before the 22nd, on the 21st, which leads me to believe they're not planning on extracting enough people to shift a House seat, because it's still not clear whether a House seat has to be shifted to the Big Island based upon an honest count of the non-resident military. But it's damn close. I think it will be shifted if they extract honestly. So, you know, it's a frustrating thing. I think that the transparency and openness is how we're able to hear each other's ideas, ask questions, and not all the wisdom is held by the chairman of the board or the CEO and by the staff. Some of us in the public have been wrestling with this stuff for a long time. And if our ideas are harebrained, we'd like to at least put them forth and have them be responded to so that we can all decide what the accurate thing is. So I'm suspecting that at least 30,000 additional non-resident military have to be extracted. And the new data that Robin Kennedy has brought suggests it's even larger than that. So, and I think this has to be discussed openly. Maybe Bart's wrong, but let's bring out the numbers. Let's have the discussion instead of hiding it, suppressing it. And now the numbers have been out since November 10th. And now it's more than a month without us having an answer or a statement from the commission as to what's going on with these numbers.
Yeah, appreciate that, Bart. Mahalo. Yeah, mahalo. Yeah, when I first jumped into the process, albeit late, yeah, you have to start with a baseline. That baseline is a number, and that number has to be verified. I know that there's been excessive testimony on step 2, but it's almost unimportant if you don't get step 1 right. And so, yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Appreciate your testimony on that. We are going to bring that forward. I know there's been, you said it as well as many other testifiers, there's been this desperation about being the last word or the last moment that we can present or the last opportunity to change the commission's mind on December 22nd. But that's not at all completely accurate. They may go forward with whatever they want, but we still have the public, the people still have the opportunity to raise opposition. The law is written so that it can be contested in court in the event that there are issues that are concerning. And by your testimony, by the testimony representing over 300,000 people, we have heard that there are issues, and yeah, we'll continue to work on that. We're believing that we'll go forward with some real data, but we will.
I think it's going to take a legal challenge. I think that they did an assessment early on. They put out feelers and they got a sense that the Big Island wasn't going to challenge them. And that's what they were worried about. And so they, I think, became reckless as a result. But I think the only thing that's going to stop them is not intelligent data and good arguments. It's going to be legal arguments in court. And I think we have to find lawyers who are willing to take this case on and file that challenge.
All right. Mahalo, Bart. We have Kimiona that wants to weigh in on this as well.
Chair, it's not specific to extraction, but it was relating to the conversation that you were sharing earlier about ahupua'a. If this is an appropriate time, if not, I can wait.
Well, how about we move on for Becky to speak about this step 1, and then we'll get to that, if you don't mind.
Not a problem. Thank you, Chair.
All right, mahalo. All right, Becky.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just real quick, I would feel a lot more comfortable if the process were more transparent. I hear things like, oh, well, we checked, but I didn't see any letters. I didn't see any emails like, oh, well, we asked on this date, but that information hasn't been provided in the record. And my understanding is Commissioner Kennedy, she took it upon herself to check and dig, and she got much better numbers. We have very strong details about zip +4 on like 30, 40 plus additional people, which wasn't there in the first batch. So that tells me that the second batch is a lot better quality data. And so we're told that, well, the way Commissioner Kennedy asked the information is different from how we asked the information. And so I'm left wondering, like, well, how was the question framed initially? And I don't see that anywhere. I don't know, so just going back to 2011, and extraction was the problem. That was like the star problem. And I would hope and expect at the next crack at this, you're going to be extra special careful. You're going to invoke these other HRSs that allow you to subpoena individuals to testify before the commission. You would elicit the support of state agencies or arms of, government arms to help you ascertain the best extraction numbers. But I haven't seen any of that effort made, which you would think would be beefed up after that challenge. And instead, I just feel like the questions and concerns have just been brushed off to the side as if it's too complicated for the public to understand. And to me, it's very, very clear. And one thing that was sort of obscured before is like, well, we need really good, rich data. We need very specific data to draw the lines. I won't disagree with that. That's for step 2. But we don't even look at step 2 until you get a solid step 1. So I feel like that's why I go to the waste, like how many man hours, woman hours have gone into making all these maps and try to figure out and argue and say, please, will someone just send a letter at least? But that part, I don't see. I don't know how the questions have been framed. I'm only inclined to put my support on Commissioner Kennedy's plea for the information because we do have much richer, more specific data. And that was the reason why the commission said, well, we're good with this data because this is the best data we got. So we didn't get that second set until after that decision was made. So for me, this is just a clear error of law. And that's the foundation of all of this. We get the right extraction, then we could start drawing the maps. So that's kind of, what's on my mind right now. And especially with the extraction, the presence of the military in Hawaii is hot news right now. And I think it's especially important that we do this right now. So with that, I'll just be ready for questions if you have any.
Perfect. Mahalo, Becky. One of the things that I put in my deck there is that, we obviously need to have the proof of extraction counts. You cannot start this process without a baseline of what truth starts at. And I think that's been the sentiment of the entire community. And that's what I'm trying to bring forth. And then if we don't get there, then the commission has all their powers to use to call to testify everyone and anyone to get there. And so we need, that's part of the deck as well, that we would expect the commissioners to use their powers to get the proper data to start the process. I know, like you said, we're hundreds of hours in. Bill might be multiple hundreds of hours in, but we're in this process, and it's hard to think that we have to start over, but there obviously is potential for that. Sandy, I see your hand is raised. I did also see that you don't have a position on extraction. Did you want to take a position now?
No, Common Cause does not have a position on extraction and whether military and students, non-permanent residents should be extracted from the census. And not from the census, excuse me, from the count in Hawaii, from reapportionment in Hawaii. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mahalo. All right, I know there's still a lot to discuss and see. I just want to acknowledge that Commissioner Kennedy has continued to pursue that, and then I've seen that, and that will continue to stay on that. And that's really the starting point. The second part of the deck was just to get to step 2, even though we might not be right to be there yet. We spent a lot of time in step 2. We have a lot of testimony in step 2. And what I'd like to represent when representing the people is that Kimiona, since step 2 has a lot to do with community and well, has everything to do with community really, would you like to input on Ahapua now?
I would absolutely love that, Chair. I want to acknowledge your conversation about Ahupua'a. I do want to also acknowledge that there's different mana'o about Ahupua'a and where it is reflected and how it is respected in today's society. It was brought to my attention as well that and most recently on Monday by a state house representative who shared that, quote unquote, Waimanalo's Ahupua'a boundary extends into Hawaii Kai. And so that was being shared as Chair Hicks and myself were giving the Kahaluu Neighborhood Board an update on what it is that we've been accomplishing and trying to work towards. So that comment, Chair, is very demeaning in terms of how we respect our boundaries. With no disrespect to our Hawaii Kai neighbors currently, Waimanalo's true Ahupua'a boundaries have not been respected for generations.
historically, looking at the Hawaii Kai community as it was built on one of the largest, if not the largest, Native Hawaiian agriculture and aqua resource in Kuapa Pond, it was filled in to build that community. So to be told that we have to acknowledge that that's where it is, while these things have been done to desecrate the very nature of Hawaiian culture, is absolutely absurd. In addition to that, I do want to acknowledge as well, Chair, that the reason why Waimanalo's current concerns are heightened is because of the historical trauma that has come from things like the filling of Kuapa Pond and the evictions of Native Hawaiians from that community, including the Kalama evictions, the Kalama Valley evictions. And so when other people think and chime in on something that's not relative to them or not something that they have shown, it's easy to have that kind of conversation. However, from a Native Hawaiian perspective, time and time again, we are outbid, we are displaced, we are evicted from our very lands that our Aina and our Ohana, excuse me, have been born into. And so, you know, to have state representatives discredit or discount the impacts to Native Hawaiian communities is absolutely ridiculous. And I just wanted to tie in that, yes, Waimanalo's Ahupua'a boundary does extend over the Ko'olau, and it does extend into Maunalua Bay. However, it has been decades and generations that has been not acknowledged in any way, shape, or form. And Waimanalo and Hawaii Kai could not be two more separate communities as it is today, both socioeconomically, both in terms of just the fabrics of how we live our day-to-day lives, the development. And that's one of the biggest concerns for Waimanalo is we will be developed and we do not want to be. So mahalo, Chair. I just wanted to throw that in as far as Ahupua'a conversation, because it does come up and it's ignorant in the way it is discredit.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate that history lesson because I did not know that until this moment. So I appreciate that and appreciate the feedback on that. And so it kind of gets us into, you know, step 2 and who defines a neighborhood. Reapportionment was never meant to define a neighborhood, right? Neighborhoods define themselves, and each of us choose to live in a neighborhood, either based on choice or circumstance, based on commonality, common interests as both how we will care for the land in our neighborhood and also our contribution. And so that would never lead to a crazy looking map. And so here we are. And so in the step 2 district maps, you know, I put in my deck there, you know, only the variables set forth in the Hawaii Constitution, specifically Article 4, Section 6, when dealing with this portion of the process. And I don't mean by any means to move on from step 1 that everything's been cured. I just, in the sake of getting everything out there, we should talk about this. You know, if there was any member that had additional criteria that they shouldn't have had or shouldn't have used, then they should not be using that, i.e. like where incumbents live, where a particular political party is disproportionately stronger, where potential political challengers live, or what is best for their own agenda. Those are all not criteria to be used in the step 2 process. And so we just are going to, you know, as all of you have stated in testimony, many of you have stated in testimony, that is your concern. And we just want to be able to bring that forward to make sure that that your voices are heard in that manner. You know, all of the guidelines set forth in section 6 meant to simultaneously be adhered to. Sometimes when you separate criteria, you can say it meets the letter of the law, but that's not the intention of the entire law. It's to be used and honored in its entirety. And so is really what the commission's responsibility as far as the maps and the redistricting are concerned is that, is the area compactly contiguous as to not favor any person or political faction while maintaining the integrity of the neighborhood without submerging vastly different socioeconomic groups of people within one district. Those aren't 6 different things. Those are 6 things that the public has voiced as needing to be represented at one time during the process. And so, you know, if there's any issues to that, please let me know. But my intention is just to voice what the public has already voiced in various testimony. And then the simple question was, was the process followed with the utmost integrity? And, I don't know, there's been a lot of testimony, maybe that hasn't been asked. But as we see that in many of the meetings and as well as emails, I have seen that, there's been a statement that Royce is excellent in these map making and excellent. And that may be, but it just means that the public representing some, 300,000 people has been able to fine tune that beyond excellence. And we've gone from 8% down to 2.5. And I think Bill will be the first one to tell you that he'll be happy the day it's no longer called the Bill Hicks map, right? That it's called the public's map. And it's because every one of these neighborhood boards contributed to what their neighborhood actually is. And there's no way, I didn't even know what district I was going to get moved into until this morning, because my responsibility here is to represent you. And so I hadn't even stopped to look and see what my own neighborhood was gonna do. And so as I was going along, I thought, shoot, I should probably look and see what neighborhood I'm gonna live in. And so this process of being the public's map has gone down to somewhat 2% deviation, and it can probably get better. There was a written testimony where the Kaka'ako neighborhood would like to keep the Mackay portion. It's basically 73 census block count that could add a little bit to the deviation, but at the same time, here we are, we're down to 2%. We can fine tune it a little bit more, the more neighborhoods that participate. And that's what we would like to represent here. So as we get into, and someone brought up perfect point. Think about this map and think about whether or not you live in Red Hill. The proposed map would have Red Hill in 3 different districts instead of going to 2, which is completely possible during a man-made disaster. And we might not think of it because it might not be happening directly in our neighborhood, but these are what we're trying to avoid, is that from being an issue later on that is an obstacle when we need to deal with real emergencies in our own communities. And of course, then the greater community has been supporting that Red Hill area, but we definitely want to make sure that we continue to keep them compact as possible to properly represent each community during the event of not only prosperity, but also in the event of an emergency. Bart, you have your hand up there. Is there something I missed that you'd like to add?
No, actually, I had it left up, but I did just put a comment in that I felt in response to one thing you said, is that Royce Jones is providing technical support to the technical committee. He's helping them enact the maps they choose to enact. So he cannot be held accountable for the deviations or for where the odd lines go. That's on the 4 members. And if it's embraced by the entire commission, it's on the commissioners as a whole, but not on the technical staff.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I didn't mean to point any fingers, Royce. I appreciate Bart clearing me up on that. Yes, right. The commission's responsibility is to use all of its resources. Royce just happens to be a great resource, and so of course I apologize if there was if anyone took anything else to that. But thank you, Royce. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your input in this whole thing. Mahalo. So on to step 2 in that deck. If there's some things in the neighborhood that you need to add or that I've left off, please do that. Lynn and Jen, I'm so sorry I get talking too much, and please give your input and whatever you'd like to share on any of this process. I kind of skipped through rapidly, but if there's something you'd like to talk about in step 1, step 2, please give your time to the people and be able to interact as you wish. Mahalo. So we get to the part where we talk about opposition to the reapportionment maps. The Office of Elections, reapportionment, meetings, supplemental meeting materials. there's tons of written testimony. There's hours of video testimony, oral testimony in opposition. Like I put here, there's too numerous to include them all, but let's just be cognizant that 11 neighborhood boards, many of them that made emergency sessions specifically in opposition of this reapportionment, who are not scheduled to meet at this time, did so because they want to properly represent their neighborhood. So 11 neighborhood boards representing over 300,000 people drafted resolutions in opposition to the proposed redistricting maps that the commission unanimously approved on that for public viewing and testimony. The good thing to add here is the process is not over. That map that they approved is not in law, is not the map that needs to go forward. The public testimony is a major part of that. And we will represent that the public testimony is probably the most important part of that. Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board 1, Kaimuki Neighborhood Board 4, Diamond Head Kapahulu St. Louis Heights Neighborhood Board 5, Pololo Neighborhood Board 6, Manoa Neighborhood Board 7, Macaulay Moiliili Neighborhood Board 8, Alamoana Kaka'ako Neighborhood Board 11, Pearl City Neighborhood Board 21, Ka'alu'u Neighborhood Board 29, Kailua. That Kahalua, if you haven't seen that one just came up recently, but it is in the meeting materials, so it's available. Kailua Neighborhood Board 31, Waimanalu Neighborhood Board 32, and those are all available on the Office of Elections. If you haven't taken the time, definitely take the time to read those resolutions. There has not been one board that drafted a resolution in support of district maps or any of the mapping. You know, there was a few Kalihi Valley residents that ended up motivating Bill to work on that. And the great thing about this process is that we can continue to improve on it really until the moment that we can't. And so if anything, the public has shown the commission is that continually improving that, which Bill has done with a number of neighborhoods and neighborhood boards, is something that in the future should be a part of the process in the commission's plan, that they take time to stop, make some adjustments, move on, and have that discussion. And that's not for us to discuss now, but it's just something that the public observes and recommends for the future. You know, the joint effort by Bill and all of your neighborhood boards has really cleaned up this map and got us to the point where we're at. I think that of all those resolutions, they all were in support of the Hicks map. There was the Kaka'ako neighborhood board hadn't been in full support as that Mackay section wasn't included, but I think that's something that can be easily remedied. Of all the issues, ironically, there was a resolution from the senator and the House and the representative there stating that there were no homes there. However, there was 73 people in census blocks. I think what they missed out on is that there's a large houseless community on that park right across Alamoana on the Mackay side of that border. And so they get included. And that's something that maybe the representatives omitted, but if they were a part of the census and they stated that's where they live, then they are part of that census, and that may be where the numbers came from. You know, I kind of, does anyone have anything they'd like to share? I mean, I'm just pretty much gonna wrap up what I put together. Lynn and Jen, please give your input.
I don't have anything, Mike. I took a look at your board packet and read a bunch of testimony, not all, but you know, I think you're representing it how I see the testimony. So I don't have any. I think the only question that after today that I might have is for Bill. Bill, how did you do your? And because I didn't look specifically at the extraction process for the numbers that you've created, did you go through a different process for that? I don't know if it's in your previous testimonies or anything like that, but how did you do yours?
If I may respond.
Absolutely.
I just used the commission's interactive website, which has population numbers for every census tract. And I started with the current district boundaries and tried to respect mountain ridges, streams, highways as dividing points where I could. My initial thing was, somebody decided that we had to do a wraparound in the district I live in, District 51. And I started this at 11 at night, wrapped it up almost at 5 in the morning, got on a roll. But I was only initially just trying to prove to myself, well, gee, why is it necessary to wrap this around? Why can't we fit properly sized districts between Makapu'u Point and Kaina Point? And I found that we could do it very easily, but the population numbers themselves are the ones that the commission has approved, and it's all automatic in the software. Whatever they decided upon for extraction numbers at the beginning of the process is what's in the tool. I really don't have insight beyond that, but as others have said, were far more knowledgeable on it than me. That has to be step one. Step two, is a waste if you haven't got step one right.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that if we believe step one, if the public believes that step one has not been done correctly, right, and that's what a commissioner as well as others are claiming, then the Bill Hicks map is really not regarded at this point in time until that step one is done.
Correct. No map. No map has any standing if step one isn't correct. If it's changed, I'll be happy to do it again, though.
Sure. Thanks for your hard work on this. It does show that you put a lot of time and effort into it, Bill. That was my clarifying question. Thank you.
Mahalo, Lynn. Yeah, that unfortunately, we're all using the same numbers to generate these maps, and step two might be time to do it all over again soon. Jen, would you like to add anything? Thank you. Mahalo.
I'm not sure. I just have a comment. I just, as someone who's worked for District 51 or worked in my previous life for District 51, I would say regardless of the numbers, what they look like, that district needs to kind of follow Bill Hicks' current map. And I've read all the testimony. I've looked at your plan, Bill, but I do think that keeping together 51 as it is now makes more sense than wrapping it around to Hawaii Kai. So I would just support that, even if the numbers change in the future.
Right on, appreciate that. Mahalo. Yeah, hopefully you each get an opportunity to look at all the written testimony, or everyone gets an opportunity. And then I've included some mana'au of my own at the end there. I hate to, I guess I'll share this now if nobody objects or minds, but what, I'm a hapa haole, right? I came here, and instead of trying to impose my will on Hawaii, I wanted to see how Hawaii could change my outlook, because what Hawaii was doing was much better than what I was doing. And I wanted to be a part of that rather than have Hawaii be a part of me. And so the core values that I kind of learned along the way were the ones that I put there. And I think that's core values that, and we have some teachers on this, so they could agree or disagree, but those are core values that we teach our keiki, right? And so I started with ho'olohe, that we would come together not only to hear what the people are saying, but we listen to their passion and concern and have meaningful dialogue, right? The people have spoken in this process. They put hours into testimony. Neighborhood boards have gotten together and presented a better option. Our kuleana, the commission, is responsible for their actions, just as the people are responsible to give their testimony. And I think that that has taken place. Whether or not that testimony is going to be used, we're going to see. We're going to see that shortly. You know, we must maintain the mutual respect of the commission, the system, the process, and the people it all represents. You know, another aspect that I learned was that Pono, right? That our state motto is literally on the seal of everything we do. And it gives us the opportunity to make righteous what is wrong. And I think the public has spoken, and to the point where I agree and have absorbed that and believe that we have this opportunity, right? The seal basically says the sovereignty of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. And if we're talking about perpetuating our lands, isn't this a basic core principle that needs to be adhered to and brought forward in order for us to have that in perpetuity? You know, this place we call home is only perpetuated when righteousness prevails. Our malama is that we have the responsibility to take care of this land and to leave it better than we found it. The start of taking care of this place is taking care of its people and representing them with Pono, right? Like, this is not something we just talk about, and that we do everything with aloha. And when we do all of our work heartily with love in our hearts, we see the positive results. We see why everybody wants to come and consume our natural resources, excuse me, side note. But because they, our greatest resource is aloha. And, you know, it might all sound like childhood words and childhood lessons, but in my opinion, it's just what needs to take place in this process and every process that we do as a community. You know, my statement to the commissioners was this: you all see the testimony, you all see the issues. I've been on numerous hearings, and we have seen in writing that, you know, about the expert, I'll eliminate Royce's name there, but that he, you know, we used all the public resources, that we used all the public resources to make a map. The commission did that, the public made it better. And that's part of the process, and that they need to be able to take that forward and make it even better. You know, it may be commonly be referred to as the Hicks map, but really it's the people's map, and the people want you to have it and refine it even further. However, we may have gotten here, and some people have stated, well, it is what it is. I've heard that on a call or two. Yeah, it is what it is, but we can fix it before it's too late. Neighborhoods are neighborhoods for a reason. Neighborhoods are people that want proper representation. No matter what party or race or origin or ancestry, the people would say that our island needs to be sustainable. Our malama starts with our kuleana to the people. People in their communities will solve problems exponentially faster than one representative on their own. To have that support of the people, you must ho'olohe and ho'oponopono this process that lost its way. You know, the hokulea is a worldwide treasure that came out of Hawaii, right? It represents Hawaii. We're all wayfinders. There's a way back to Pono in this process. Maybe there were justifications given. Maybe you are trying to correct a wrong with a wrong. We, the people, don't know if there's gerrymandering. We don't know if there was an intention to favor one person or political faction. We don't know if this was meant to suppress voters, Native Hawaiians or others. We don't know if you meant to submerge socioeconomic classes into a vastly different district, but you do. The commissioners know whether or not those variables were used in this process, and they need to extract those variables to the point in which we have a map that represents neighborhoods, that represents the people. You know, maybe I'm naive in thinking we, the people, can still make a difference, but we have to try. Commissioners, the will of the people is for you to ho'olohe and to accept your kuleana. Ho'oponopono with aloha, the hapua, and mahalo our kapuna by paving a way to return to a self-sustainable community which lead to self-sustaining basic island units. And so, you know, unless there's further testimony or more information that we could share to urge the commissioners to take your testimony to heart, we'll conclude the meeting.
Chair.
Does anyone? Yes,
Chair,
ma'am.
This is Lori.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, I just wanted to double check before you end the meeting if the council will be taking any action today.
Yeah, so we're going to hopefully get feedback based on the deck that we started to prepare. We'll get feedback. I do have a question. How will Jen and Alan and Lynn give me input without directly communicating? Or can they just each one by one communicate, and then we would compile this presentation for the commissioners to consider?
Unfortunately, that needs to be done at a duly noticed meeting. Any kind of deliberation, decision-making towards a formal council position.
Given the timeline, are we able to do that, given that we need to have 6 days of notice and the next meeting is the 22nd?
So you could either try and take action today, or earlier today, the Maui Council continued their meeting to early next week. So you could continue your meeting as long as you announce the next date and time of your meeting.
Lori, if Lynn has something to interject. Lynn, please.
I actually was going to ask the same thing, if we're taking any action, or when you had referred to, were you referring to the deck as the compilation of our comments as a group, and that it was started there? Is that what you were saying? Just for clarification.
I would say that it started with public testimony, and my deck is just a compilation of that public testimony. And that if I would assume that if there's not great changes and one of you wanted to make a motion and second it, that we could submit that unless there's major changes, then we would need to reconvene another meeting to probably get to that point. But I'll,
okay. Yeah, Mike, so just from my point of view, I'd rather see a continuation. If this is going to be the basis of the document that gets forwarded to the commission for consideration, I'd like to look at it more carefully and be able to have at least an imprint of the rest of the commissioners' feedback in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see when, Lori, would that mean we need to convene a meeting on the 22nd prior to the commission's meeting on the 22nd?
So the commission's meeting, I think at 1 o'clock on the 22nd. I think if you want to give the commissioners time, you might want to target trying to send them feedback before the 22nd, not day of. I think the more time, the better. So if
yeah, like Monday might.
Yeah, no,
like
I'd rather do it sooner rather than later, but for notices purposes.
You don't
do we
have
meet
to, because you're
criteria?
continuing it, so you don't have to do that. With a
Okay,
continuation, you don't need 6 days.
Okay.
But we
And
do
you can
need
do it
to,
on the weekend too, right?
we do need to announce the continued date and time, and staff would need to help kind of arrange and set up that meeting. I'm in a position to commit staff to do that on a weekend right now. I can only speak for myself.
So Monday. I'm just saying, like,
Monday.
if we get Maui on Tuesday, I mean, honestly, if you guys want this to be heard and want that technical committee to actually take it into consideration, you guys have to submit it as early as possible. And I don't think you can't, I mean, you could submit something and then even, I'm assuming you can add addendums or whatever after your next meeting, but Or they, Lori, I'm sorry if that's Lori or Carolyn, I can't tell because I'm on a phone, but all of the testimony that you guys have submitted to be like on this call today, that all comes to us. So we do see it. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I would say Monday if possible, because Tuesday we already have Maui continued.
I think the biggest issue for me is that, you know, and forgive me if I didn't read it correctly or whatever, but I didn't understand that the board packet was, that was going to be presented. And so I just want to make sure that I read it very thoroughly if it becomes something that we're adopting as a advisory council, and make sure that I look at it carefully, because I didn't have an opportunity, and this is no one's fault except for my own, I have an opportunity to build it. So I just want to make sure that I have some time to review it well. Given the feedback and the testimony, as well as previous testimonies.
Member Finnegan, do you think, I'm not suggesting, but I mean, in trying to kind of look at options for continuing it, do you think you'll need like several days, or is it just a matter of being able to sit down and read it? Because if that's the case, you guys could just recess right now and come back later today, if that works for everyone. That might, I don't know if trying to do it later today might be easier for everyone.
And then I would ask that then this would be retitled so that it would be a report to the commission instead of a OAC board packet. It would be a report from the OAC to the board, to the commission, right?
Yes, I mean, you can make that as part of the commission as well, and that would help, I think, clarify. But definitely, if the council takes action, it would be a report on behalf of the council.
Yeah, I'd be okay with reviewing it over the next couple hours. Monday, I would not be able to meet until the afternoon, like the late afternoon, after 3, more like after 4. So that would be my availability at the earliest, is maybe later on this afternoon or after 4 on Monday. That's and Jen, please also comment, because I don't want it to just be held up because of me.
I can meet at 4 on Monday if needed.
Me too.
Mike, you have any thoughts on the suggestions, or it can be even later on this afternoon?
Well, my thought is everything that has been submitted has already been submitted and submitted to the commissioners. So we could maybe do a new OAC report. That way, maybe less is held up. Maybe we can do a shorter version of OAC.
I mean, if there was a summary of this, what I'm looking for is kind of like a summary of what we're asking the commission, because this is a really good compilation, and maybe it's outside of the purview of this OAC. And Laura, maybe you could clarify. Are we just summarizing, or are we requesting for certain things to take place? Because I think they have all of this information already. So what makes the difference between our summary of what gets passed on versus, do we have an opportunity to make, some kind of recommendation or anything like that? If someone could clarify.
Well, the commission has invited all the advisory councils to provide feedback on their proposed maps. However, each council kind of decides to the form of that, and the content is up to each council.
So nothing precludes us from making recommendations, basically. So then we should make recommendations.
That's correct. And I do recall, I can't remember what meeting it was, but I do recall a commissioner saying, I think the more specific, the better.
Okay, because what I'm seeing when I review this, or maybe Mike, if you could highlight did you put an actual like recommendation in here? Because I'm skimming through it right now and I didn't see anything that was a particular recommendation.
The board packet was more to consolidate some of the testimony, the exhaustive testimony, all pertinent, all matters, but maybe if we had like you suggest, a one-page summary of what we are recommending to the commission, it would streamline, there is a page that basically, states the public's concerns about step 1, step 2, and the staggering of senators. But I don't know if we need more than that or that's sufficient. I mean, there's a lot to do, even if they just start with step 1 with only a short amount of time to do it. So under the duty, kind of summarizes a little bit, but we however you want to proceed, I just want to make sure that the public has full representation, and obviously the rest of the council does too. I was trying to put this together in the dark.
No, you did a great job, Mike. You really did, and you put a lot of work into this. And so I'm just thinking about, like, this really helped me to, this packet was really helpful to me to, and this process has been really helpful to me to get me up to speed on what's been going on aside from just reading testimony. So I greatly appreciate it. I think if there's some way that we could do a succinct, what is it that we want to see the commission do, then I think we could be much straight and to the point, I guess, of what we want to see after seeing this, after going through all the testimony and everything.
Would you be opposed to just talking about that now?
No, I
or
wouldn't.
if you got to review some stuff, obviously maybe take a short recess and do it, or whatever your guys' timeline is like.
Can I just make a proposal? I mean, I see some of the comments too, and I agree with them. I just think that we should, one, object to the maps that are proposed by the commission, but also perhaps also throw support behind Bill Hicks, and if the numbers change, base the new numbers based on Bill Hicks' map versus the map that the commission has done.
Yeah, I think we need to object to there actually even being maps made ahead of proper extraction, and then go and further object to the process beyond that point. But I think we're just making a recommendation. I mean, I was trying not to build a lawsuit. It just happens to coincide with building recommendations. So
yeah,
I don't think we can be afraid of that. We need to do what's right and for Oahu.
Yeah, sounds good. No, definitely.
I think if it's the first thing of step 1, I mean, if that is the biggest issue and what we want to see in how they complete step 1, and I think we should stick to that, because it makes it a weaker argument, in my opinion, when you start to talk about maps. If it really is about step 1, then I think our biggest thing should be step 1. I know how difficult it can get when you're talking about trying to figure out or putting, certain boundaries in place to start off or that kind of thing. I think a clear message, and this is just my own 2 cents, but a clear message would be, what are we working with? Because it can affect other islands, so from what I'm hearing from testimony and reading from testimony. So if that's like the what we collectively think, of the OAC that we're thinking that, step one really is, this is what we'd like to see for step one so that we can get accurate counts. Then to me, I think that would be a really clear message as to, what the cumulative testimony is about. But if we are saying that, the maps can be drawn and just tweaked once we get step one done, I guess that's a slightly different message. So I'm trying to figure out what is the best way forward, and it's not up to me per se. It's just like, what is the, how do we converse about this so that we can as a OAC submit a clear message?
I guess my only thought is if we only address step one, which is extraction, we're going to get back to the same issues with communities divided if they come back with different numbers, right? So I think that we need to put something in there about the communities staying together consistently.
I hear that. I mean, I definitely hear that the maps are important, and to lay down the argument that, certain districts should not be, spanning across different areas and all of that. So I do understand that, but I don't, are we assuming that if we have to go back to step one, that there might be like some push to have that there would be no opportunity for feedback on step two after, this one report goes through? Is that why? Is that mainly the reason, because we wouldn't have that opportunity?
I guess, we were presented the first map, right, and communities were separated. So I don't necessarily believe that if we get the maps again, right, that they won't be. So I just think we should put something in there that relays the sentiments of the community.
Yeah, I think it's important to address step two in the event that, someone tries to go forward without confirming or cleaning up step one. But there's a couple of people with hands up. If Vanessa, if you'd like to share as well.
Aloha. I'm not a parliamentarian, but I have attended numerous public meetings over the last few decades. And per Robert's rules, it seems like your council, one of the members could put up a motion in regards to step one and a motion separately in regards to step two, which you'd like to cover. So maybe one of the members would like to put something forward to reject the technical group's plan, and perhaps in the same motion support Bill Hicks's plan. That could be one separate thing that's discussed. It would need to be seconded, and then you could take a vote, and then you could do a separate one about how the counts are done for step one. Then that way you'd have something to give in writing that could go into the minutes and pass on to the Reapportionment Commission, instead of just letting it hang like a cliffhanger, because it makes the public nervous. Like, we don't have any finality or any settlement. We want to be heard. It would be great if you could, even now, like as you're going, you could probably skim through the testimony and see that most people that did submit testimony are in opposition. I don't think there was one in the whole packet that you received that supported the plans. So please consider taking action today. Thank you.
Go ahead, Bill. What would you like to add to that?
Thank you, Chair. I put it in chat. I would just submit as a basic starting level that it would be applauded if the Oahu Advisory Council were able to state that they are strongly advocating for Oahu residents, and that Makapu'u Point should be used as a boundary for House and Senate districts, and that the total population deviation should be reduced using compact and contiguous districts. there's not a lot of specificity there, but there's enough that is different from what the commission plan proposed that it would be helpful that the commission at large received at least this very basic summary statement. And then it would also be appropriate to add beyond what I had put in chat that the step one verification of proper numbers has to be done, population numbers has to be done as well. So I would just offer that as a suggestion for something to get started with. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mahalo. It's just whether or not either of you are comfortable with bringing forth a motion based on everything that you've received and reviewed and gathered up until this time, and then we could vote on it. But obviously, like was stated, we kind of need a motion and a second. And since there's only 3 of us, it's down to you two. Lisa, do you, Lisa would like to add something here. Yes, Miss Bishop.
Mahalo, Chair. Do you want the public to draft something so that maybe when you recess today and you want to come back in a couple of hours and look at the draft, and then you can tweak it from there and then decide in public, any changes to the draft? Would that be helpful at all?
I don't know how that differs from general written public testimony, although new testimony can be taken into account. I think ultimately the council needs to set forth their recommendation based on all of that public testimony. Yeah,
right, that's
instead
true.
Of, yeah, going. So it might take a
Sorry.
while to get all 300,000. Go ahead, Lynn.
I was just reading what was in chat. I didn't read it prior to that. I like where Bill's suggestions are in regards to moving forward. I don't know what there were two like, I guess, points. One was Kaena Point, and I think the other was Makapu'u, right? So it would, I think you would have to name both. And in it, and when it comes to some of the, if those are going to be what do you call them, the
anchor points. Yeah.
Anchor points, thank you. If they're going to be the anchor points, then I think you have to be pretty loose with what happens in between to give, so to state that it would be a particular plan, to me is difficult to do, because you are trying to make it all work out in between. So, and I know Bill has done a great job of being able to determine, like that, but now we're also talking about potentially moving and shifting a district to another island, that kind of thing in the conversation. So I like that, like where Bill was heading with it, like saying, okay, here for Oahu, here are the anchor points that are really important to the people of Oahu and the neighborhoods. And then after that go, like do the step 1 and the step 2 that gives those anchor points. And I think that I would be agreeable to something like that, something that gives it some play in between, because you'll have to make the rest work if you do have those 2 as anchor points.
Yeah, and establishing the anchor points doesn't negate all the rest of Article 4. They're still going to have to build the districts based on the
Right.
rules, keeping a neighborhood compact and contiguous. And in my opinion, my input would be that if we could come to something together today, it would be better for representation of the public and for the commission to be able to move forward with, they have, I always said, they have all the written testimony. All we're doing is reiterating that.
Right.
Maybe we're simplifying it, but at the same point, none of the public's testimony should be negated just because we offer a summarized version of that.
Right.
So
So what
Yeah.
if you utilize this board packet as a a summary of testimony, and that the recommendation that would go into the report, which combines this, the summary as well as some recommendations from us, which would be, along the lines of the 2 anchor points and step 1, and I don't know if there's specific step 1 type of recommendations, like, and I'm just not as familiar as, reaching out to the universities and or military or that kind of thing. But if there's that general, then at least we're giving a clearer message maybe to the commission as to what our conclusion is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the making sure that the extraction numbers that are used are the most accurate extraction numbers, and that we object to the first phase of step 1 because the extraction numbers were not confirmed and as accurate as what's now available. And then pairing on or adding on that, step 2 takes place after step 1, and there's been a lot of work done on step 2, but if step 1 is not confirmed to be accurate, then that we would have these anchor points that you start with and then generate the maps based on the rest of, obviously, Article 4 and the subsections on the rules of it all.
So being that we have discussed it, I'm guessing that, there is a way that that we can maybe even motion right now and get, describe what the report would look like, and then use the material that we have in front of us. And then I don't know who would pull that report together. Would it be you, Mike, or someone that supports us on the staff?
For the extractions?
For the language to complete what we had just talked about in the report, and create a report.
Maybe Lori can help us with how we present that legally, but ultimately we're to come up with the wording of it and just make sure that we run it by legal counsel, I would assume.
Do you want to just do it later on this afternoon?
I just don't know how we do that, because we can't do it outside the public, and we have to, it's such a weird process. Like,
so could Lori, with our discussion that we have right now, and Mike, if you have the time, with what we've talked about so far, we could probably just put our recommendation as OAC, use this as the summary of the testimony, do a few paragraphs of a recommendations from OAC along what we have just talked about, and then we can vote on it when we get back.
What if we take a 10-minute recess, write 2 paragraphs, and figure out whether or not you guys agree with that? Lori, is that okay? Take a 10-minute recess?
Yes, that's fine.
Sorry,
ahead,
I have a
Jen.
meeting at 3. Sorry, I didn't know it's going to go so long.
Sorry.
I can probably meet back at like 3:30.
Okay.
I'm
Can we
sorry.
take a recess until 3:30? No, we got to get it done. It's okay. Life still goes on. Is that okay, Lori?
Yes, so for everyone on the meeting, just so they know, you're going to be recessing and reconvening at 3:30. Is that enough time, Member Wilbur? Or it's saying Jen Wilbur.
Yeah, that's my name. Yeah, I'll try. I'll make it back.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jen.
No, it's okay. Just work in this.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so there'll be a recess until 3:30.
Hello.
I'm sorry, hold on, before, reapportionment staff, Carolyn, can this Zoom link just stay open?
Yes, I understand it can be.
So should members just, people can just leave the meeting and then log back on?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, 3:30.
Mahalo.
Member Rompol, you can call me if you have questions.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Thank you.
Test. Test.
Hi.
Is your sound working? Is the sound working or?
No, it seems like it's working, but I think Mike doesn't have his mic on.
Did you hear me test just a minute ago?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I did.
excellent, excellent, good. All right, well, then it's, yeah, somebody tell Mike, text Mike,
Yeah,
your
but-
mic mute. All right, I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay, he got it. There we go. Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right, aloha, all, welcome back.
All right.
If you guys get a chance, if you could read that OAC recommendation and if that meets your approval there, Lynn and Jen. It should be in the chat. Hopefully I added it correctly.
I was able to download it. It looks good to me.
Looks good to me too.
I'm not sure if we're waiting for Lori to log in or anyone else from the government side.
This is Lori, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Are you able to cut and paste it in because I can't seem to click on it?
You are challenging my secretarial skills.
Alternatively, you could read it also for those who aren't able to download.
Might be too large for me to cut and paste. It doesn't seem to be allowing me to do that. But I will read it here. Are we good to reconvene?
Yes, please just confirm who's present.
Okay, reconvening from our recess. I see Jen Wilbur present, and Lynn Finnegan present, and excused is Alan Takemoto. Anyone else that we need to confirm?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, the Oahu Advisory Council has come up with a recommendation to the Hawaii Reapportionment Commission. Title of this document is Recommendation of the Oahu Advisory Council to the State of Hawaii Reapportionment Commission, Friday, December 17th, 2021. The Oahu Advisory Council met on Friday, December 17th, 2021 via Zoom. The meeting was called to order and Chair Mike Rompel, Lynn Finnegan, and Jennifer Wilbur were all present, and Alan Takemoto was excused. The Oahu Advisory Council's recommendation is that all written and oral testimony submitted by the people be read or listened to and considered. A board packet was submitted ahead of this meeting by Mike Rompel in summary representation leading up to this OAC meeting, which is also available for your review and consideration. The OAC's recommendations in no way is meant to diminish the testimony of the people, but is submitted in subordination of the people's testimony. It is the OAC's recommendation that the commission reject the proposed technical committee maps, awaiting confirmation of constitutionally compliant extractions, and that the commission request accurate extraction counts in the public with all of its powers granted under HRS Section 25.3 and Section 25.6 to legally start a valid reapportionment process. Furthermore, the OAC recommends that after there is evidence and confidence of accurate extraction numbers, Oahu maps be drawn in accordance with Article 4 in its entirety, which will establish Kaena Point and Makapu'u Point as natural boundaries for both House and Senate districts. Furthermore, the OAC recommends that the commission consider using the Hicks map as a barometer for keeping neighborhoods whole within districts while achieving minimal deviation. The OAC respectfully submits this recommendation to the commission as it carries forth in its obligation to the people. Oh, there, someone was able to cut and paste. Thank you, Bill. Lynn or Jen, do you want to have any further discussion, or does someone want to, is it readily available, or is it acceptable to make a motion?
Can I make a motion to approve?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. All right, motion passes. We'll make this recommendation on behalf of the Oahu Advisory Council. Sorry, I haven't done so much homework in 25 years. All right. Anything else we need to handle, Lori? Sorry for our ignorance on this.
Oh, I think that's fine. We can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Much mahalo for everyone's time and efforts, and we'll just keep going on this. The fight continues, or the work, I should say. Mahalo all. Aloha.
Thank you, Chair.